All right, guys, it is 4 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started, and that way it's gorgeous out, so if we get done early, yay. My name is Melissa Fresh, and this is a three-part series on ELs and writing. So today is our first day. We're just gonna kind of be like an introduction. So I'm gonna share my screen with the PowerPoint, and we will get started. So here we go. All right, let me get it on present. Okay, so here we go. Today we are talking about ELLs and writing, all about helping our English language learners become those successful and confident writers that we want them to be. So my name again is Melissa Fresh, and then this is my email down here, and for some reason on the screen the S got bumped down. But it's Fresh, and Fresh has a C in it, m@frankfurt.k12.in.us. All right, here we go. So a quick introduction. This is my 23rd year of teaching. I've taught kindergarten, first grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and then this is my 7th year as an ESL teacher at Suncrest Elementary in Frankfurt, Indiana. So I was born and raised in Frankfurt, have been there all of my life. And I'm married to my husband, Chris, and we have 2 kiddos, Ben, who is 15, and Addie, who is 12. So as a family, and then my husband and I were very outdoorsy people. We just came back from fall break in Utah. We went to a ton of national parks, and it was amazing. So you can usually find us outside doing all sorts of things outdoors. All right, so a little bit about my district. My district is it's a rural area located right in the middle of kind of Indianapolis and Lafayette. And our main highway that runs through our town has several factories on it, which open up many job opportunities for our Hispanic population. And our corporation is very high poverty also. So last year we had about 68% of our population on free lunch and about 10% on reduced. So only about 23% in our district are paid meals. And then as a district, our Hispanic population makes up about 51% of our total enrollment at CSF. And we are the home of the hot dogs. So we have a big hot dog festival every summer. It's quite the to-do. All right, so here's our agenda for this 3-part series workshop. Week 1 is rethinking the writing workshop. So really talking about what we did as a kind of elementary, intermediate school to kind of rethink what our ELs needed as far as writing workshop. Week 2, we are going to be all in writing workshop. So today we're gonna kind of set it up, and I'm going to explain kind of what we did as a district at those primary intermediate grades. And then on next week, we are going to be seeing students writing, we're gonna be conferring, we're gonna be sharing, all of that meat part of writing workshop. And then in week 3, we will kind of continue on, as well as going with some things that you guys want to see or some questions that you have. So let's get started. Any questions that you guys have? I so prefer doing these workshops in person. I love being able to share ideas with one another, talk back and forth in just a natural, normal way, and just share things, bring things for you. So I'm gonna try my best to share everything I can via Zoom. But if you guys have any questions during this, feel free to just ask them or even put them in the chat, and I will try to incorporate them into the discussion or just answer it directly. So also, as we're going through, since this is a 3-part series, I know writing is a topic that it's like one of the most difficult things to teach just in general, it feels like, and then we throw in that EL component. So if there's really something you want to make sure that I touch on within those 3 sessions, please email me and let me know. And just, you know, it might be something that I already have planned in the presentation, or it might not, and I can add it in there based on how we do it at my school. So please email me if there is something that you want to see. Also, I have all of your emails from when you signed up, and I will share the entire presentation with you, which has the links to click on the resources. All right, so kind of our big why. Why were we so focused on kind of rethinking that writer's workshop? Well, when we look at our students, at my school alone, in our district, we're about 50% EL. At my school alone, we are close to 60% EL in just my elementary school. So our primary grades still have several level 1s and 2s. And even in our intermediate grades, we have a lot of newcomers that are level 1, obviously. So one of our lowest areas on access every single year was writing. And it was across all grade levels. It wasn't just like it was our primary or just our intermediate. Across all grade levels, our writing scores were always the lowest. So our kids would rock the reading and the speaking. Or not the speaking, excuse me, they would rock the reading and the listening, which is that receptive language that ELs pick up quickly. However, writing and then speaking are always our lowest, which makes sense because it's that productive language. So we knew that we needed to look at that data and do something different. We wanted our students to view themselves as writers. As I said, another really low score on access is always that speaking. And it's really trying to focus on building their confidence as writers, which then helps to bridge that gap that our ELs have between oral and written. And we'll get into that more in the presentation. But this, helping them with writing, actually started to increase their speaking scores as well. So moving on, when we talk about those scores, we have to use that data to determine what our students need. That data, as EL teachers and as those EL spokespeople to help our students back in the classroom, we have to use those scores to drive that instruction and to help our teachers. That's where we get all of our ideas for those can-do descriptors and what our kids are ready for. Now, the important thing when looking at those scores is we can't just look at that overall score. So when I pulled our roster from last year, it was kind of hard to find because our writing scores and our speaking scores have gone up tremendously. So it's of course, my first instinct is I want to look at those overall scores right away. Let me get those. Okay, do we have anybody test out? Do we have any level 1s or 2s in the upper grades? Did we have some of our level 1s grow out of level 1? But if I just look at these, I'm not instructing my students where I need to instruct them. So if we look at this first student, he's a level 5 overall, but in writing, he's still a level 4. The next one, 4.4, in writing, still a level 3. So the way that I instruct a level 3 is a lot different than the way I instruct a mid-level 4. So we have to really take that into account and look at, oh, hey, it's going crazy. And look at those scores. So what we did was we looked at those writing scores and we looked at those speaking scores and realized that those were the lowest scores. So we know that we need to do something different. As kind of like the primary intermediate EL team, we came together with our district literacy coach, our building literacy coach, interventionist, our EL director, and we came up with some ideas of what we need to do differently. So thinking about what writing should not look like for ELs compared to what writing should look like for ELs. So when we think of what writing should not look like, and this actually is kind of for everybody, not just ELs, as you find a lot of stuff is like with EL. So what writing should not look like? It should not be a replica of what everyone else is writing. We don't want all the same papers with just a few things changed. That is not writing, and that is not creative writing either. Writing should not be a ton of teacher corrections instead of student conferring. If we're just handing, especially our second language students, if we're just handing them a piece of paper that's been corrected by me, it teaches them absolutely nothing. And of course, with punctuation, with grammar, and sometimes with structure, subject verb agreement, they would have a lot of red marks on their papers. So that teaches them nothing. Handing them back a paper that's already been graded is not teaching. It's not helping them become a more successful writer. Also, writing should not be a time when there is no immersion into what the unit of study is going to be. We must set our students up for success. And that was one thing we found was really lacking in writing workshop, which we'll totally get into. Also, writing should not be scripted writing with little to no understanding of the writing genre. If it's very scripted out, fill this in, fill this in, fill this in. Oh, look, you wrote a paper. Well, no, they just filled in some blanks. So that's very, very scripted, and that's not what writing should look like, even for our ELs. Now, a lot of those, like what writing should not look like, we found were taking place because teachers are doing their best. I was trying to do my best in helping these students write, but I wasn't helping them. I was kind of doing it for them. So what should writing look like for our ELLs? It should be immersion into the unit of study. They need to see read alouds that focus on that genre, sample writings from others, sample writing from you. They need to be totally immersed in that genre. They also need mini lessons, daily mini lessons that focus on conventions, focus on the craft. They need those mini lessons so that it's fresh in their mind and they can go apply it to their writing. Also, that creative writing, they need that time to be creative within that unit that you're studying. Of course, they can't just constantly write personal narratives or about their weekend or about their cat. We do have to give them that choice within the unit. So if we're writing personal narratives, give them choice about write a personal narrative. It doesn't have to be what you did over Christmas break or what you did this summer or your favorite vacation, as long as it's a personal narrative. That's where that creative writing comes into play. Also, writing needs to have conferring time, and we are going to spend a lot of time talking about that next week, and I will show you how I confer with my students and how I take notes on what they're doing and set goals with them, and then give you those resources as well. So conferring is a perfect time to focus on what you want to teach them, as well as how you can push them forward to that next step. So writing time also needs to have that share time. I know I was one of the most guilty people in the past, of course, pre-COVID, when I could pull those groups to my room. We had such a limited amount of time. And then as a classroom teacher, if they were writing really well, I didn't want to stop them. And that share time was often the first thing to get nixed. That has to be a part of daily writing time. Share time is when our students learn the most because they're learning from other students. Our other students are sometimes the best teachers, better than we are, and can get a point across a lot better than we can. So share time, like that 7 minutes of share time at the end of every single writing block. And then of course, when we're done with the unit of study, we need to celebrate. When an author is done writing a book, they celebrate, usually with putting it in a bookstore, and they get some money for it. But we need to have those celebrations with our kids. We need to celebrate what they did, and they need to feel proud of themselves. So going from that pink side, what it should not, this is what our writing time really used to look like. And we knew we needed to do something different. So now we've moved to that green side, and we've seen the results of making that change. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. It keeps going everywhere. All right, so rethinking that writing workshop, thinking about what do our students need to be more successful writers? How do I help them view themselves as writers? That's a huge thing, is they don't view themselves as a writer. We've all had those students, I don't know what to write, I can't spell. And that's because they've been in that pink column for so long, with things being scripted, so many teacher corrections, told what to write, and they don't view themselves as a writer. How do I teach writing workshop so that I'm not the one doing all the work? We've all had those moments in writing time where you're exhausted at the end of the writing block because you've literally written like 20 papers for your kids, it feels like. And you're like, well, you're done with your persuasive essay, but I actually did most of the work in that, going through and revising and editing and telling you what to write. So rethinking, how do we do that? I don't want to be the one doing all the work. And how do I help them be more creative? Because we all have the kiddos now. Before we moved to that green side, what we should be doing, it never failed. Like they had no clue what to write, or they would try to write exactly what their friend was writing, and their friend was writing about their Christmas. Well, you weren't there, so you need to write about something that you did. So that was really something we had to think through. So here are some things that our students need to be successful writers, and all writing workshops should include these things. First of all, our ELs, if you've ever read an EL book, if you've ever been to an EL workshop, or even like one of my webinars, the first thing I talk about is our ELs need visuals. They need to see a picture of what we're talking about, especially when it comes to themes, when it comes to vocabulary, holidays. They need that visual image of what we're talking about. Us just saying it is not enough for our ELs, because they're trying to take that word, think about what it is in their first language, flip it around to that second language, and remember all of that at the same time. Giving them that visual is that memory marker. And that's what our kiddos even call it. They know that they have those memory markers in their heads. And you'll even see them kind of look up and think about it. They're calling on that memory marker. They're looking for that visual that's in their brain. So visuals are something that I have an entire folder full of visuals. So when I share this link with you, you will have all of these visuals that you can use. However, please feel free to share them, whatever you want to do with them, because they are so helpful, not only to our ELs, but to a lot of our other students. So our kindergartners right now, their whole unit is kind of on apples and pumpkins, and they're writing all about those and creating stories about those. So we have apple vocabulary, and all these are vocabulary cards that have been made with a picture. I put sentences with them, kind of give the definition of what they are. And in that way, our teachers can hang these in the rooms, and you can see it's everything that you might see when we used to be able to take field trips. Our kindergartners always went to the apple orchard and the pumpkin patch. And so these are all things that they would see there or be exposed to in a read aloud. Again, these are tons of visuals that you have total access to and can use however you want. Right now we have a lot of our fall vocabulary words up. We're starting to put our Thanksgiving words up. When you're writing a fairy tale unit, or when you're focusing on a fairy tale unit, having those fairy tale vocabulary up are so important, because our students need to see what those are. If we're talking about a fairy or an ogre in different fairy tales, those are weird words anyway, let alone for an EL student. So having that visual, that's their memory marker, they can call on that. Now within here are tons of other things that I've made for our teachers too, with visuals on them that don't necessarily go with writing, but feel free to print them and use them however you want. One of the things we use a lot for visuals in our room are these questioning words, because our ELs really struggle with questioning. And we'll see that a lot when we get to the conferring part of writing workshop, where you will ask them, well, like, well, who are you going to bring into the story next? And they forget what a who question is. So these are just cards that I've printed for all of our teachers, and they just have them in their room so that the kiddos can look, oh, who is a person? They first see that visual, the person, then it tells you what the question is, who is always talking about people, and then an example. So really just having all of those visuals available for our students is what helps them be more successful. So again, please feel free to use any of these. You're welcome to share them. A lot of these just came about by teachers saying, hey, Mrs. Fresh, we're working on this unit. Can you make some cards for my students? Absolutely. So if there's something that's not in there that you need for your school, please tell me, because I will be more than happy to create visuals for it, because I'm positive our kiddos will benefit from it too. So all of those visual images are so important for our students. And the one thing that we stress a lot with visuals are that visuals need to be real images. I used to be a huge fan of the clip art and the cartoony looking things, but our ELs especially, they need a real image. They need to see what it really looks like. So we really stress that to our teachers that, okay, the clip art is cute and you can keep it for other things, but when you're trying to make that connection for our ELs, they need that real life thing. So just Google image search is the way I get most of my visuals. All right, so next, sentence frames. So sentence frames are another very tricky thing when it comes to writing workshop. This is where I talk a little bit about that scripted writing, and sentence frames at the beginning for our new writers or newcomers. Sentence frames are great. Sentence frames, a lot of teachers think that sentence frames are doing the work for the student. It is absolutely not. Sentence frames are helping with the structure, so then they can get their ideas out. So instead of a student trying to remember over Christmas vacation, and try to get all of that written down, we're gonna provide that frame for them. So I'm gonna help you organize it. Now you just need to fill it in. But sentence frames are great for many other content areas. However, writing, they can become a crutch very quickly. So that's why we only use sentence frames in writing for our new writers, for our babies sometimes in kindergarten, until they start to understand the flow of writing and become more creative on their own. A lot of times they're just stuck and they don't do anything. Well, we want them to do something, so we'll give them that sentence frame. The way that, here's how we kind of realized that it was becoming a crutch for our students. I co-taught a second grade class last year, and we started off with sentence frames. And we had some of the lower ELs, like the 1s and 2s in second grade, and we probably had about 24 in our class together that we co-taught, all from second grade. And we were like, wow, these guys are doing amazing. They can fill in these frames. Their writing is great. They're illustrating. It looks amazing. Well, what we found out was after we went to a workshop, which is where we revamped the entire writing workshop, we realized that when we took those sentence frames away, they had no clue what to do. They had not learned in that process to be creative and to come up with their own ideas. So we were providing too many sentence frames for our students and not nudging them to become more creative on their own and to develop that oral language that they needed. So we realized that we needed to back the sentence frames off and build that oral language with them to get them to express their ideas. Now, there are some units that I've created that you're welcome to print and use. Again, you'll just click on the link. I've created some realistic fiction units. Now, all of these units, they do have the option of sentence frames, or they have the option of not having sentence frames. So in them, I kind of give you like the mentor text to use, some anchor chart ideas, and then you can see here's where they start to fill out their characters. So all of these are linked in the presentation for you, and feel free to use them. But just remember that sentence frames, you want to make sure that you're not overusing them and stifling that creativity and kind of pushing down or squashing down that oral language. That's what we found out was happening with our students. And it took them a little while, like a week or so, to really start to understand that they did have those ideas. And one thing we say to our kiddos all the time, if you can say it, you can write it. We actually start with, if you can think it, you can say it. If you can say it, you can write it. And then a step further is, if you can write it, then you need to be able to read it. And our kiddos know that phrase so well. And if they get stuck, we'll say, oh, remember, if you can think it, and they'll say, oh, I can say it. If they get stuck at that next stage, we'll just say, oh, if you can say it, what else can you do? I can write it. And that's that gap between our oral language and our written language. So be really careful with those sentence frames. All right, next, another thing that our students need for writing workshop, this should be in K through 5, are word walls. Word walls are critical for success for our EL students. They use them and they need them. So we have word walls in all of our grade levels. Every single teacher, K through 5, has a word wall in their room, and they look very different. So word walls should be meaningful. We've all seen the cute little ones at the teacher stores that are all made out, and there are 500 things in there, and you tear them out and they're all hung up on the wall when the kids walk in on the first day. Well, that's not a meaningful word wall. That's a pretty word wall and some wallpaper. Word walls should be very organic. They should be meaningful to the students. It's not my word wall. I know how to spell these words. It's their word wall. So what we've done is we don't do the pre-made ones anymore. We just laminate construction paper, the letters in the corner, and then with a dry erase marker, as needed, you can write the word on the word wall. So when I'm conferring with students, if I notice a lot of them are spelling the word like wrong, I can stop everybody right then and I could say, all right, guys, I found a word. We are going to add this word to our word wall. It is the word like. Does anyone know how to spell the word like? And then I make it a very interactive, like 2 minutes. And we write it on the word wall together and we talk about it and we use it in a sentence. And now they know that that word is up there. We've interacted with that word. And from now on, that word needs to be spelled correctly. So that's why we're very careful about the words we put on the word wall. And we want them to be accountable for it. So when I'm going around the next time, if I realize that Omar still is spelling the word like wrong, I'm going to direct his attention to the word wall and he needs to fix that because now it's a word that's up there. The reason we do them with dry erase marker is so that they are very organic and ever changing. And you know what? My kindergartners, they don't need the word I up on the word wall anymore. Funny, but yes, they did at the beginning of the year. So we have erased that off the word wall. The same thing like in 2nd grade, they don't need like up there anymore. Let's take it off. So once they've learned it and have mastered it and you're seeing it over and over and over again, take it off. That keeps it from getting too crazy up on that word wall. But if you don't have word walls in all of your classrooms, I would definitely encourage you to do that because it's something that is so important for ELs and for all of our students. All right, also one thing that we've started to implement are those synonym walls. So those synonym walls they really help us in writing time to build that vocabulary, to kind of up that vocabulary usage. So we have a lot of teachers that use the paint strips or like the little pockets. But what it does is it really, like I was in a 3rd grade classroom today and we were talking about character feelings and how character feelings change over time. And we're really trying to implement that into our books. Well, every time they would notice the character's feelings changed, I would say, okay, how do they feel now? And every single time it was happy, sad. And I really wanted them to understand that, okay, the little boy's getting ready to jump off the diving board. He keeps telling himself, I can do it, I can do it. He's not happy, he's confident. He's being brave. Or when he would jump in the water finally, I would say, how does he feel now? And they would all say, happy. Or before he got down and didn't do it, they're like, he's sad. And we were really working on getting away from happy and sad. So finding those other words to use, confident, proud, nervous. So really thinking about word usage and then holding our students accountable again for it. So instead of happy, let's go up and see what other words we can use that might better describe how he's feeling. All right, and then we get to mentor text. This is the huge part of writing workshop. So mentor texts are how we point out that good writing that we want to see them use in their books. And we make books in our kindergarten through 4th grade. We are making books. Our 4th graders right now are kind of starting to get back into the notebooks, and our 5th graders do notebooks. But our little guys up until 4th grade, the beginning, are making books, because that's what authors do. Authors don't write a piece of paper, they make a book. So we really emphasize we are making books. So all of our mentor texts are very important, and we really have to think through those. Mentor texts for a unit of study are not something that we just go in and pick out the morning of. We really want to think through these. So my 3rd graders just finished a unit on all about books. And so we talked all through those anchor charts during our immersion phase. But then I also had a stack of books. And we'll get into that stack of books, but that stack is what I use for that whole unit of study. But I want to make sure I have a variety of all about books, because if I only bring animal books, guess what they're all going to write about, all about animals. So I want to expose them to many different kinds of things. Yes, I could write about an animal. I could also write about volcanoes. I could also write all about Legos. I had some kids write all about video games, all about places around the world, all about different jobs you can have. So really exposing them to different things that you can do that are not just animals. If we only bring one type of thing, that's all they're going to do. So here's a little snippet about mentor text that we just started a new unit of study in 3rd grade this week, where I kind of explain the mentor text that I chose. So let me know if you can't hear the YouTube video. All right, here it goes. Okay, so I kind of wanted to show you guys how I choose a stack of books for a mentor text. So what I did was I have our stack of books for our next unit of study right here, and was just going to go through them. So we're working on character feelings kind of changing throughout a story and being able to respond to that and give that evidence as to what made the character's feelings change, and then to notice that the character's feelings have changed. So kind of the overarching goal is to respond to literature kind of through that essay, but we're using it in that story form. So I grabbed Chrysanthemum, which we've all probably read this book and are very familiar. So Chrysanthemum's feelings change throughout the book multiple times. And the students, we read this one today, the students worked on identifying when the character's feelings changed and the evidence to support that change. So that's what we looked at today, and how the author did that, and the illustrator through his words and pictures. Then I have Jabari Jump, so all about him being afraid to take that leap off of the diving board, and kind of transitioning it into times when we're afraid to do something too, which could be a possible topic for students to write about. So this is a good one to kind of notice when his feelings change and the things that make us feel braver in our lives and the people that make us feel braver, which then they can apply this to their own writing. The next one is When You Are Brave, which is, again, you can tell it's going to be all about feelings just because of the title, but wanting them to understand that a lot of times in our lives we have to be brave. So this really will lead to a lot of great discussion in students recognizing what happens to our main character when she has to be brave, and then connecting it to times in their own lives when they've had to be brave. And we're all familiar with this one. This is Enemy Pie, so really helping them recognize how the author kind of weaves kind of the feelings about how he feels about his enemy into the story, and then how that changes with the help from Dad and making that enemy pie, and then also just from playing with that enemy and seeing that, oh, a lot of times what we thought about a person is exactly how we truly feel about a person. So again, they can apply this then to their writing using some of the tactics that the author and illustrator do. That's the whole goal, is getting them to use this as a mentor text and apply some of the things that the authors in these pages or these books and the illustrators do to make their story sound better and to get that point across of those character feelings and traits. And then we have Wimberly Worried. So this was another good one where you can discuss times that you've been worried about something, and then we can relate it to Wimberly. So then when they go to write their book,
they can remember this, and the stack of books they will know so well by the end. So then they can come grab this book if they would even need it, to see kind of how the author used the words to get the message across and the illustrations. And our last one is those shoes. So this is a great one to point right off the bat, how the little boy is sad. Right away you can see it. And then of course we talk about how in books, it's not like life always is. Usually 99.9% of the time by the end of the book, everything's better, happily ever after. So just getting them to understand though that even within the story are feelings and character traits and feelings, those character feelings change quite a bit. And then of course, so important is to have my own book that I've made. And this is called Addie's Crazy Day. So Addie starts out super excited about her presentation. She's practiced, she's worked so hard on it. And then she realizes she forgot her note cards. And so we can go through that story and talk about how those feelings have changed. But that important thing is that they need to have those mentor texts. We can't just expect them to write a story without immersing them in what we want from them out of a story. So we have to show them what authors have done, what I've done myself, as well as what other students have done. So just really making sure that you have that stack of books, and that's what we call it. We call it our stack, and this is the stack that we will work on for the whole entire week, that whole immersion phase, which we'll talk more about next week in part 2. But this is why mentor texts are so important. By the end of our unit of study, my kids will know these books so well. They will be able to refer to them. When you think that we're going to spend a month on just these books, they will know these mentor texts very well and be able to recall them just like that and use them in their own writing. So that's a little bit about mentor text and what we chose for our next unit of study.
All right. Let me go back here. Anybody else hate watching themselves on video? I'm like, oh my gosh, do I really sound like that? So anyway, those mentor texts are so important for our students. As you can see, we call them a stack. And yes, we use that stack for a whole month because we want them to follow those authors, which is why you have to be so intentional picking that stack. We want them to know those authors so well so that they can go back and use some of those same strategies, those same techniques that those authors and illustrators used in their own books. And I'm not even kidding. Even little first graders will say, hey, Mrs. Fresh, I want to do it like that one author did in the shark book. And they know those books well. If I'm introducing a new book every single day for All About books, they never have a chance to fully learn that craft and to understand and to learn exactly from that author and then to come back to it and see it again. And you'll see when we get into conferring time next week that I take those stack of books with me so that I can point those things out. Oh, look, you did something like Gail Gibbons did in her book on sharks. Let's look at that. So really making those connections with those books. Now, as you heard in that video, one of the big things is that you need to have books that you've written too. They need to see you as a writer, not just telling them what to do. Now, here's the bonus. You don't have to have it done. Mine are hardly ever done because I don't have time to sit around for grades K through 5 and make books for every single unit. But that's part of the process. So we all know we have those kids that, oh my gosh, if we make a book, they're going to be done on the first day. We have yet to have that happen. In the 2 years that we've revamped our writers workshop, have yet to have it happen because they see the process that I go through. We talk about the process that these other authors go through. So my books are never done, but I can still teach from them. And then they see that, oh, writing and making books is a process. So here's a little bit, this is an explanation of kind of some of the books that I've created so far. I have many more, but I'm not gonna show you every single one of them. And I just base it on what that next unit of study is gonna be for our students. So I kind of go through the different grade levels here, and it's really quick, but it shows you the different strategies that I use to make my books depending on what I want my students to do. Oh, and of course it didn't play. Here we go. I have made to use with our units. It's very important for students to see you are a writer as well.
They need to see writing that is on the same level as theirs. They need to see writing that is a step better than theirs, and they need to see writing from an author that is better than all of us. So this is one that I used for first grade, and these are level 1 writers, and obviously not spelled correctly, but I had them work through it with me and sound it out. So Ben and Addie, Ben likes basketball. So really showing students how to stretch those words out, how we can make a book all about things that we like, and using those words that are on the word wall, as well as practicing sounding those words out. So this is just one example for first grade. This is another one that I made for first grade when we were practicing how to draw people, and when we were practicing again just making an I like book. So my level 1 first graders, I noticed, were very it was very beginning of the drawing stage, very beginning of the word, the letter sound stage. So I knew that we needed to back up, that I couldn't just turn them loose. So we started with just drawing pictures and getting a story from our pictures. So just focusing on here's how we draw, and I can tell that this is me, or I can tell that this is a person. I can tell that these are books and not just scribbles, adding decoration to our pictures. And then one thing that I do with my first grade writers, especially those lower level ones, is we count out the number of words that are in our sentence. So we counted out those words, those are 5. We said over and over, I like to read books. And then this is what we came up with as how to write it. Next we did something that we like to eat. So I like to eat salad. Again, counted those words out. I like teaching, something that we like to do. So that's one little scaffold that we can provide for our writers that helps them make that connection between what we're saying, our actual words. Those words can go on the page. So those are some examples from first grade. This was an example that I did for my kindergartners, because during our writing workshop that I do with another kindergarten teacher, we have several newcomers in kindergarten. We have several kindergartners that come very much a level 1, no English at all. So this is an example of a book that I just made for them because they were making books, but it was very random, and most of it was scribbles all over the page. So I started with just simple pictures. I did add the words because I want them to be exposed to those words. I want them to start making that connection that the picture that I drew, the story that I told, also has words that I can write down for it. So this is an example for my kindergartners. We talked about, what am I doing here? How can you tell that I am swimming? Then we talked about,
I'm going to pause it really quick. My kindergartners, like I kind of described, they were just scribbling everywhere, and which is a first step. So what I saw was, okay, here's what they're doing, but they can't even tell me what they're drawing on that page. I don't necessarily care that they're telling a sequenced story, but theirs was like a scribble on this page and then maybe a circle on this page. And there was really nothing that they could tell me. So they hadn't even made that connection yet, that I don't have to tell a once upon a time in the beginning, middle, and end, but I can draw some things. Maybe I like French fries. I can draw some pictures of French fries. Or I love my mom. I could draw a picture of my mom. So really just getting them to understand that we can still draw something on a page besides just scribbling. So that's kind of where this book came into play. Like, oh, how can you tell I like pizza? There's a picture of me eating pizza.
What am I doing here? How can you tell that I'm eating pizza? Because of the picture that I drew. And then you'll see a video a little later in the presentation about one of my kindergartners who started to write her own I like book, using kind of the examples that this mentor text provided for her. Now we move on to kind of our second graders. So this is an example from second grade, and we were wanting them to work on narrative.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop it because I'm just going to kind of go through a lot of different books. But as you can see, I think about what my students need, and then I go from there based on that need. And like I said, a lot of students or a lot of grade levels are in different places. So I need to base my books off of that, but still staying with that unit of study. So I needed my kindergartners to understand that we can draw a picture on a page. So I made pictures on a page to show them. Now, obviously, when we get into those older grades, I have a whole book all about hiking where I talk to them about it. I have one where I've made my own fairy tale. So they need to see us as a writer too, and that goes in the stack. So the whole goal of those books are they need to see writing from people who might be a little bit better than them or on the same level as them. That's writing from other students. So I keep books from past years to show them, like, oh, here's what another first grader did. Look, or here's what another fourth grader did. So they need to see writing that's comparable to theirs. Then they need to see writing that's a little bit better than theirs, which is from us. And then they need to see writing that is really good, which is from an author. So now they have all of those different levels to look at and think about and then model their writing afterwards. And yes, you will get students that create a very similar book to what you've done, but guess what? It's making a book and it's writing. So that's okay. All right, so now thinking about bridging that gap, I talked about one thing, the reason we really needed to rethink writing workshop is because of the huge gap that exists between our students' oral language and their written language. They still have not made that connection yet that what they say, they can write. And then whatever they write, they read it. That is their story. And the easy way to tell if your students have that gap is to watch them read their writing. Because if you, like you'll see in this little quick snippet, this little girl, she's not reading what she wrote. All you have to do is have your kids read, like she's a fifth grader, so she's reading out of her notebook. And the entire time she keeps looking up at me and she's telling me the story. She's not reading her story. That's the gap. And that's that gap that we're trying to close. We need them to understand that I can say it and then I write it and then I read it. And when that gap starts to close is when you start to really see them flourish as writers and speakers. And that's what we're starting to see. So just watch how she reads and how she looks up several times as she's reading.
That on myself, so I start crying, thinking that something bad could happen to him. When I raised my eyes to see to look up, I saw a cop, and he gave me a candy to make me feel happier.
All right, good job. So you can clearly see, like, she was not reading her story. She was totally just telling me what she had written instead of reading it. And that's where that gap occurs. And she's a fifth grader. So one way that we really help bridge that gap is we tell them you have to look at your writing until it becomes a habit and they start to make that connection. Remind them, oh, look at your writing. Don't tell me the story. Read me the story. Read me your story. And even our kids are hilarious now because they'll even be like, oh, look at your writing. Look at your writing. They hold each other accountable on it now. Model to them how we read a book. So it's not like a read aloud that I already have memorized and I can look up from it. When I read my stories to them, I show them that I'm reading each page to them. And also pointing to the words. For some reason, we've got this pointing to words has gotten a very bad rap. And it's okay to point to your words, especially our EL students, to help them bridge that gap, to help them understand that that is their story. And I just want you to read your story to me. So really having them point to the words. With our little guys, we'll point for them sometimes just to get them in the habit of doing it. So this is my little Omar in kindergarten, and he's absolutely adorable, but we're really working on him. And you will even see how when he points to the words, he fixes it and he goes back because he's pointing and he's making that connection.
Read the cover for me. What's this say?
All about dogs.
By
Omar.
by Omar. Good.
The dog poop.
Oh, dogs poop.
The dogs One.
You saw him catch
What is
himself.
this?
A flash.
A flash. Does that mean he's going really fast? Yes. Good thinking, Omar.
Dogs jump. Dog eat
Oh, what's he eating?
cookies.
He's eating cookies. Do dogs like cookies? Yes.
Dogs sleep.
What's he doing?
Sleep.
He's sleeping. Good job. High five. I love your story. Thank you.
Is he not adorable? So Omar is learning to make that connection by just pointing to those words. You saw him on that one page go dog, oh, dogs. He saw that S. So he's not telling the story, he's reading the story. All right, so when we think about kind of wrapping up that rethinking the writing workshop, we have that old way of thinking was that writing notebook. You respond, you turn the page, you start a new prompt. Oh, there's no time for illustrations. We don't have time for that, especially after second grade. Another old way of thinking was that we must meet with students and revise and edit everything. And then those very structured writing plans. Monday is this, Tuesday is this. And that here are the plans, we're all doing it. So, or even that thought, that quote of, oh my gosh, I go through so many red pens. That's that old way of thinking and writing workshop because it's not teaching them anything and it's exhausting you and it makes you hate teaching writing. Writing is literally my new favorite thing to teach because of the growth we've seen in our EL students. So that new way of thinking is all about they need to be creating books. That's what authors do. When we just give them one page, especially K through 2, and then like we do K through 4 at the beginning of 4th grade, when we just give them a notebook page, we never truly see what all they can do. And those illustrations impact the quality of our writing. Our students need to be illustrating, especially because that's sometimes the first step. You can't tell me a story yet. If you don't have the language yet or you're a newcomer, draw the picture. You can do that and we can get a story from there. Correcting, everything does not have to be perfect. Handing them back or expecting them to have perfect writing or perfect spelling and grammar doesn't teach them anything. We have to build that into our mini lessons and our immersion. Students need time to explore who they are as writers and be creative. We can't expect everybody to turn in the same thing every single day. And we also have to nudge our students and not push them. That zone of proximal development, we can't expect a level 1 writer to do the exact same thing that a native language speaker is doing. That's not even possible. And it's only going to defeat them and actually frustrate you. Also, choosing what you write about, giving them that choice. Like, yes, we're writing personal narratives, but I'm not going to tell you what to write about as a personal narrative. You create a book that's a personal narrative story. And then again, making all of those corrections. It just makes them feel like they're not a good writer. So that's our way of thinking about writing workshop now. And where this comes from is Matt Glover. We were fortunate enough to have Matt Glover come to our school like 3 or 4 different times throughout the year and totally blow our minds with writing workshop. He even went into our classrooms and worked with our kids to show us hands-on how to help our EL students as well as all of our students. So any books, The Engaging Young Writers is wonderful to get those little guys going, as well as those craft and process studies. He is amazing and his philosophy totally aligns to how students learn. So that's where we did the whole rethinking of writing workshop. We knew we needed to do something and Matt Glover was that little push to get us there. So kind of what this looks like. As I said, our yearly calendar, our K through 3 kids, they are making books. At the end of 3rd grade, we do introduce notebooks a little bit. But if we want them to develop as writers, we are making books and working on that craft and working on those conventions. 4th grade, we do start with our books just to get them going again, to jumpstart that brain, and then we go through notebooks. 5th grade is notebooks, but still incorporating all of those rethinking things that we did to better writing workshop. So it's that slow transition, but it is amazing the progress that we have seen. Our students, our EL students, are much better writers than they ever were, and they are confident and they can't wait for writing workshop. They are making books like crazy. We have tubs and tubs of books already this year. Each student has like a little file folder in a tub, and it's already so thick with all of the books that they've made so far. All right, so what does it look like? And this is where we're really gonna delve in next week. So that whole first week of a new unit is immersion. There's little to no writing that first week because you're just building it up and getting them so excited. And then every day after that first week is a quick mini lesson, student writing and conferring at the same time, and then that share time. And of course, we wrap it up with a big unit celebration. And like I said, this is the stuff that we'll get into next week, where you will actually, I'll show you writing workshop, but I wanted to set up the philosophy of it and the structure of it today so that you could really see what it meant and why we were doing it. So that breakdown, again, that 5 days of total immersion, mentor text, teacher-made books, student samples, anchor charts, talking, talking, talking. After that, 5 to 7 minute mini lesson, and I literally set the timer because we all know we love to talk. And so we'll just keep talking, talking, talking. And you want to, oh, let me make another point. Let me make another point. No, it's that 5 to 7 minutes of that mini lesson. And then they have about 40 minutes of writing time. It's amazing. They write for that full 40 minutes. Our first graders will write for 40 minutes because they love writing workshop. Not even kidding. And then that last 10 minutes is share time. So it does look different, and we have to get out of that mindset that what writing should look like, because we can't expect students to do something that they're not ready to do. So writing workshop does look different. So next week, we will talk all about that immersion phase, those mini lessons, conferring, share time, and I'll show videos of all of those things, of me actually doing it with my kids so that you can see it. And then we'll look at tons of those student samples to see that writing process in action. So that kind of wraps up the today's part 1 of writing workshop. And like I said, guys, I know it's a weird way to do it with Zoom. I would much rather do it in person so that you can see all the samples, you could have them with you. But please, if there's something, I will send the presentation to you after this is over. If there's something that you want to make sure that I touch on, email me and let me know. Like I said, I may already have it planned. If not, I'll put it in there. And then feel free to let me know if there's anything else you need. Like I said, those visuals, feel free to print them and use them however you want. So does anybody have any questions? Nope. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming today, and I will see you next Wednesday at the same time, and we'll learn a little bit more about writing workshop. Bye, guys.